Moonsong is a show that has been developed over a number of years, actually, because we realised that kids on the autistic spectrum have particular needs in terms of theatre. And for some of them, for a lot of them, it's quite hard for them to access theatre in the normal way. And so we wanted to make a show which was designed for those on the autistic spectrum across the whole of the spectrum, because the spectrum is wide, as you know. And we wanted to be able to make a piece of theatre which could be accessed by anyone on the spectrum. So those that have got massive challenges around behaviour and focus can actually engage with this piece of theatre. We developed it in conjunction with a number of special schools and came up with what people have seen today, Moonsong. And it looks very simple, and it is very simple actually, but what goes behind it and the training of the team who perform it is, I guess, quite sophisticated. One of the key things with engaging with all students with learning difficulties, but particularly those with autism, is enabling them to relax. Because there's a lot of research around how the brain functions better when it's relaxed. That's for all of us, actually, whether we're on the autistic spectrum or not. And it's really important for kids with autism to very quickly get a message that they belong here, that it's okay to be here, and that there are no demands being made of them. We've got something for them, but we, the performers, are completely relaxed about how they engage with the piece. And so if they're sitting back against the wall, a bit anxious about coming into the space, that's fine. They can see the play from that dark corner. And then the song that mentions their name several times, each student is welcomed. The song repeats over and over, and their name is mentioned several times, and the attention of the actors is on the student. And we're saying that, we're here for you, you matter, this is your name, we know what it is, and we're singing it. And that takes time, and the time it takes is the time it takes. Because unless we can create that space of safety and welcoming personal acceptance, I guess, then the rest of it's going to be a struggle. But if we can create that and then be true to it through the whole piece, it enables students to access something which often they can't. One of the keys with working with autism is not to try and get them to do something, but to provide something, in this case a piece of theatre, which is inherently interesting, but you don't have to show that you're interested in it. And for us to provide that, and then to relax and allow them to come at their own pace and their own time. Because that's what they're going to do anyway if they're left to themselves. And if we, the adults around here, can sit back a bit more than we normally do, we find that enables kids to do things. And we've had teachers and parents tell us some extraordinary things happen when we do that. And I guess that's the trick, because it appears to be casual, but everything that each of the performers does is measured and for a reason. Repetition's key. There aren't many words in the show, and when there are words, they're repeated. So there's a line near the beginning about the moon and the sea.
This is the moon. Above the horizon, above the sea. The moon. Above the horizon, above the sea.
The lines that are there are carefully chosen and repeated several times to give students time to get them. There's a methodology behind what Bamboozle does, and it's applied in the classroom if we're working on a project in a school, and it's applied in a theatre performance like Moonsong. It's applied in the work we do with families, and one of the keys to the methodology is to remove the judgment from the learning process, or from the relationship between the performance and the audience in this case. Students in school are very used to being judged, and the education system has judgment at its core, and testing and measuring. And if we can take that overt judgment out of the process and say, here is something interesting, we will engage in it with you. We'll do this together, we'll explore it together, rather than you do something and I'll test you on it. So there's that's removing the judgment from the process. Enables kids to flourish, actually, because kids are inherently interested in things. And if we, the adults around here, can step back a bit and use our professional skill in observation and allow students to decide what they'll do with the ping pong balls, because sometimes students get involved in running around picking them up, not because we're telling them to, but because that seems like a fun thing to do. Is a manifestation of this methodology, which is quite rigorous, actually, although it doesn't look it. The narrative for Moonsong is actually quite a light touch. Essentially, there's a girl who goes to sleep, she dreams she's on the moon, she encounters some stuff on the moon, she comes back again. It's really simple narrative because it's a vehicle for interesting interactive moments. And in the research we did, one of the things which always engaged kids was ping pong balls. Just throwing them around and bouncing them around. So hence we thought we're going to have some ping pong balls in this. And another thing which was a constant was a drum beat. So the djembes are there, and there's a pulse and the banging of the tubes. It gives the possibility of a non-verbal dialogue between performer and student. The tapping on the floor of the feet, and there was a point where the actors were jumping along with the kids, and it became a kind of dialogue. Because even if children haven't got spoken language, they've got the potential for dialogue. And give and take is a big thing with students on the autistic spectrum. Some of them find it hard to surrender things that they've got hold of. And if we can relax and not be judgmental about the exchange, sometimes that enables people to volunteer stuff that they wouldn't normally do. I suppose you could call it object animation, really, with the slinkies, we call them, which is industrial tubing for air vents and things. And because it's very simple, and you can look down it, and it's bendy, and it catches the light, and it's shiny, so it becomes a kind of creature puppet. And there's not likely to be any history with it, because it's, no one's probably going to have a toy like that or something. So it has a neutrality to it. So it becomes what it becomes, and it's one of those things we play with in rehearsal, of trying different stuff, junk objects. And the comets are simply polystyrene balls and trails of tissue and fabric. But it took a long time, there was a lot of trial and error before finding something which would fly and look like a comet in flight.
Everyone run away! The asteroid is approaching! Wait, we have to run away from the asteroid.
The other thing about these objects is when working on a show like this with kids who might destroy things, not because they're destroying it, but because they're investigating it, there needs to be nothing that matters that much within the space. So if someone eats one of the comets, then it's replaceable. And likewise, and they get replaced quite often. And likewise, the slinkies, it enables the performers to be able to relax about the objects. They're not going to keep them because they're too precious. So as soon as you get that, oh no, we can't do that, then you've destroyed the potential for communication. So simple things animated to become something is a kind of key starting point. What is key to this is that everything is allowed. So how a student interacts with it is what the actors will go with. The actors obviously have a vocabulary of things you can do with one of those slinkies. It can become as if it's a puppet looking at something. It can become, you can look down it, you can make sounds down it, any of which are fine and none of which are unnecessary. So if a student, and there was one this morning where a student seemed to be engaged by waving the pipe so it did a kind of rippling. So that's what the actor did with it. So that became the way to use it, which was all right.
Hey, don't get close in there. Watch out.
And it's not possible to do that wrong because there's not a right way to do it. There are some things we can use to engage to see if it works, but there's no result we're trying to get. And one of the things we say to each other before a session, whether it's in a school or part of a theatre piece, is we're not trying to get a result here. We're not trying to get students to do something with these slinkies. We're not trying to get them to do something with the comet. If they pick the comets up and throw them back and forth, that's fine. If they sit and watch them and do nothing, that's fine. You can't get it right. Conversely, you can't get it wrong. And I think it's that which gives the permission to engage and be creative and interested. And I think that's the key to it, really. Not us not trying to do anything. This is about finding a way for students on the autistic spectrum to be able to engage with the world. Now I can tell them to do it, and if they're smaller and not as strong as me, I can make them do it because I can get their hand and put it on there. That's not what it's about, because however sensitively and done with a good heart that is, it's still me doing it. And what we're interested in is finding ways of passing responsibility to the students, particularly as they get older, because when they leave, when they get to 18 or 19, they're going to leave the nurturing home that a school is, and they're not going to have the kind of closeness of adult support that they may have in the school, which is fantastic. But we have to find ways of them to be able to stand on their own and make decisions on their own. And part of this approach is designed to help to do that. And the breathing's important. The sigh which punctuates the scenes is designed to give a message that all is well. We can take time and we can just relax and we can look round And it's giving a message to students that we've got time here, there's no rush, I haven't got you to do anything, I haven't got to do anything, we're just here. And that's an important message, I think. And saying goodbyes is important, to cue them that this is coming to an end, to value them for being there, and the performers always thank them with the sign and the words. Thank them for coming, and it's not as long as the beginning, but as you say, it replicates it, so they can hear their names again, and they can wait for their turn, so there's anticipation built in. It's important, I think, to finish in a relaxed way and to telegraph that it's going to end.